Hi, everyone. I'm Emily,
And I'm Vince.
and this is the Lighthouse Lowdown. Welcome to the Lighthouse Lowdown.
Thank you.
We're in a new place, a new space, I should say, once again.
Yeah, Rip Rap version 4 or 5.
This is going to be our permanent spot, but we need to figure out some...
Permanent for a while. Let's go.
We need to figure out some deets.
Yep.
But I'll jump right into it today. I think it might be a little bit of a long one.
Oh, nice.
I'm going to start off by saying that this coming Wednesday, the 7th, is National Lighthouse Day. So if you live near a lighthouse, it's more than likely that they're going to have some kind of special event or, a party.
Well, in the United States, National Lighthouse Day.
Yes,
Very
national.
cool. Our international listeners will have to dance along. Speaking of dance, what's the news there?
I don't know. We probably talked about it last year, but the USLHS is doing a dance competition where as long as you have like a lighthouse or a lightship or something in the background, you do a dance to a specific song and submit it, and then winners get cash prizes.
Oh, I'm definitely going to submit.
Well, we are going to, because the submission deadline is, I think, August 25th, and we're going to be near lighthouses by August 21st.
Heck yeah, Cape Cod.
So it'll be a very fast edit, very fast filming, and everything else.
We'll do a little short-episode.
But I would like to participate. And it said the submission can be as short or as long as you want it to be.
So like 15 hours of us dancing.
Maybe not on loop like that.
No, not on loop continuously.
Oh, well, you'd be kind of tired from all the travel.
Cocktails help.
For questions about it, you can directly email jeremy@uslhs.org. So
All right.
do it.
Very good.
Now on to our history of buoy. I'm going to talk about lighthouse coatings, which I think coatings. Yeah.
Like a jacket.
Like a jacket. A lighthouse jacket.
I am excited.
So obviously the coating depends on the material of the lighthouse and its location, and what works for one lighthouse isn't going to work for all lighthouses.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple lighthouses we've covered that have special coatings.
Like ochre coke.
Like ochre coke.
That big stubby.
Little reminder, we talked about that in our Outer Banks episode, and it had a coating made of lime, salt, rice, whiting, and clear glue, which was mixed with boiling water before being put onto the lighthouse.
Did you say rice?
Yes, ground rice.
Awesome. Did not see that coming.
I know. It was just the strangest concoction. So we don't have a lot of like that today, but that was what they used to protect ochre coke. A very high humidity environment onto a brick lighthouse. So obviously it was permeable and needed some help, which that even didn't protect the lighthouse. Like the brick needs some help these days. So
yeah,
but it's been standing
a while.
for a long time. But
yeah.
Masonry often had a sacrificial layer of stucco. Is that?
Yep, stucco.
Stucco or lime mortar wash that would erode over time instead of the stone.
Yeah.
That is kind of what I'm thinking ochre coke might have been like too, is just that it was sealed and, kind of took the beating instead of the lighthouse. And then because they reapplied it like every year, or maybe like twice a year or something. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was one of the keeper's jobs was reapplying that.
I wonder if it's added up over time. Because its shape is kind of rounded almost.
Yeah. Bumpy.
Yeah. I mean, not even, but I remember touching it and looking up. I have some photos I took from the very base of it, just kind of looking up as close as you can to it right by the door.
Yeah.
And I was like, how was that applied? It looks like it was applied by hand. Well, guess what? It was. And obviously, I kind of feel stupid. Of course it was. Like, what are they going to put that thing in a spray booth? Roll it in?
We'll actually talk about that today too.
No way.
No way.
I'm actually surprised.
We'll actually talk a little. I'm not quite done with my history, but we'll talk about a couple of these points today. So obviously, since ochre coke, things have evolved a lot, and lighthouses need protection now more than ever because they're in serious danger of like falling apart unless there's somebody taking care of them. So it's better to have a strong protective coating than to like constantly be having to do maintenance, which has to be done anyway.
That makes sense. They got enough work to do out there.
Yeah. So commonly these days we see acrylic, polyurethane. Oh my gosh, polyurethane on metal, stone, and brick lighthouses, plus all of like bolts and railings and things.
Oh, okay.
And this substance often resembles a cross between plastic and rubber, so it's flexible but also really strong. Trinity House, which is a UK maritime charity, we've talked about it a lot. It oversees the lighthouses. Did an FAQ on the subject, and they said that they have 2 systems depending on the lighthouse material and location. So aside from the polyurethane mentioned, they also use monolastex smooth on render, which render is just a mixture of sand and cement. This monolastex smooth is a water-based, waterproof substance that also resists mold, fungus, and also has really good vapor permeability. So it's great on like brick, but also on concrete. And it also comes in a lot of colors. So it's like a coating, but also a paint.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, don't let me take you too far off track.
Oh, no.
Render.
Yeah.
Being a mix of cement and sand.
Yeah.
So I'm going to oversimplify it, but I think, there's different classifications of sand and aggregate and whatnot. But so cement is the slurry, and concrete is a mixture of cement and aggregate. So if you were to take cement and sand and mix it together, you'd have concrete, more or less. The reason I bring that up is I saw a video, it's like 2 or 3 minutes recently. A woman, another podcast, I can't tell you which one because I don't remember. She was talking about how we're running out of sand, like as a natural resource.
Oh.
Apparently there's only so much sand that's perfect for construction. Like there's certain sand grades you need for making glass, certain sand grades you need for making concrete. The cost of like refining sand makes it not worth it if you can't just go get it from somewhere.
Yeah.
And then transporting it's super expensive too because it's heavy.
Uh-huh.
So anyways, apparently they like the Burj Dubai, that really tall building. Apparently they imported sand even though it's in the desert because the desert sand is not fit to make concrete.
I never thought about that.
Yeah. So
all sand is not created equal.
I wonder what my coffee brain said was, I wonder if render is another like British English word for concrete, or if they're very different. I'm not sure.
They're different. I just looked it up. Render is actually mostly a protective coating.
Oh.
So that monolastics, I'm away from the page, so I can't remember what it is. Monolastic smooth goes on top of render, and render is a protective coating usually used on masonry, but it's a mixture of sand, water, cement, and lime.
Oh.
Has a fire rating and waterproof qualities, and also holds aesthetic appeal.
Well, render me educated.
Good one. Okay, and then Trinity House also said for offshore lighthouses that take more of a beating, they use a liquid plastics product, but they don't specify what that is.
Like an epoxy, I bet.
Yeah, probably.
Nasty stuff.
Something a lot more tough. For paint that needs to remain really bright, this is fun. Tnemec is a brand that's been used for several lighthouses that have red roofs, such as St. Augustine and South Pier Lighthouse. It has a high solids fluoropolymer, think Teflon.
Mm-hmm.
That's not that's exciting.
No, I am excited. Tnemec is an awesome brand. Oh. And they actually they worked with me at my first job and then now my current job.
Way.
And they make paints, not all of their paints, but some of their paints are actually insulating. So you can coat a pipe with paint and it insulates it.
No way.
It's not as good as like fiberglass insulation.
Yeah.
But like, and some of their paints are really like super strong, which makes sense for like outdoor use, so that you can put steel pipe outdoor and just not worry about it anymore.
Wow.
So not worry about it corroding is what I mean.
Very cool.
So sorry to interrupt. Very cool.
But you get what I'm talking about.
Yep. And I actually have a koozie in our kitchen from Tnemec.
No way.
And it's like a paint can design.
Weird, small world.
Yeah. The little like text on the back says something like, contains like delicious drink or something silly like that.
That's funny.
Anyways.
Yeah, you nodded with Tnemec, and I was like, don't nod as if you know what I'm talking about.
The people can't see you nod.
I do know what you're talking about.
That's awesome.
But anyway, this layer goes after the polyurethane layer, which has high color and gloss retention even when exposed to high UV for years. So like a lot of lighthouses, we see the red turns into a very light pink over like not that much time. So this kind of battles that, where you keep that bright day mark that's so important without having to reapply all the time.
That's awesome.
which is something we'll see with the lighthouse today as well. Because we're going to be talking about White Shoal Lighthouse, which we mentioned in episode 43 with Mackinac.
Mackinac.
I looked off like Mackinac.
Memories of Mackinac.
Something.
Mackinac Point?
Mackinac.
That's right by the Long Bridge. That's north.
Yes, the Mackinac
in
Bridge.
The Great Lakes. Superior and...
Old Mackinac Point Lighthouse.
I'm sorry.
I knew that there were several words, and I was like, if I try, then I won't cover it. I got to look it up. But anyway, that was episode 43, and this one is 20 miles west of the Mackinac Bridge.
Cool.
Out in the open. So we're heading back up to the Straits of Mackinac. This strait connected Lake Huron and Lake Michigan connects and had fairly high traffic, especially towards like the late 1800s. It also had a lot of shoals, which is just areas of shallow water.
Okay.
And they each needed to be marked now that more people were starting to come through this strait. So the most shallow, Simmons Reef, was only 3 feet deep, and Congress approved $60,000 for a lighthouse to be built there in 1889. But a survey of the area showed that they couldn't build a lighthouse there for less than $150,000. At that time, that was like, that amount today is $5 million.
Ooh.
Can you imagine looking at that and being like, oh, it's probably about $5 million.
It's like the memes, the guy from Pawn Stars. Best I can do is $5 million.
What? I don't know that.
It's just like, have you heard of Pawn Stars, like the TV show? What?
Oh, yes. I thought you were saying Pond Stars.
No, that would be
I was
more
like,
out. That would make sense.
Frogs?
But
that can't be right.
There's just this image that goes around when they're like negotiating, like anyone selling their car on Facebook or whatever.
Yeah.
And it shows the bald guy like slap the counter, and it's best I can do is, and then he says the price.
Some number, yeah.
So that doesn't translate very well, but maybe I'll insert it here.
People that do know it would probably get a kick out
There's
of
going to
that.
be a couple out there.
Yeah, just a couple.
You're welcome.
The Lighthouse Board requested the other $90,000, but they also asked that the original $60,000 be used for lightships that would mark each of the 3 most shallow areas.
Lightships?
Yes. Stationary lightships.
Oh.
And they'd get towed out there and left.
Cool.
Yeah, so Simmons Reef, Gray's Reef, and White Shoals were the ones that they were looking at. And Congress approved this in 1891. So at that point, 3 100-foot wooden lightships with fog signals and steam propulsion, which is important because these were the first U.S. light vessels to have self-propelling engines. But they still had to be towed out there. So maybe it was just like, I don't know. If they're self-propelling, why do they need help?
They had steam engines. They were towed out there, and they were stationary.
Yeah.
And what was the light on them? Was it electric at the time?
No.
Or was the boat, was the ship itself just brightly colored?
It had a light. We need to do a history book on lightships because
I thought we had.
I think I touched on
we
them.
talked about, maybe I'm thinking of a different word. Lighthouse tenders is what I'm thinking of.
Oh,
which are not lightships.
Yeah, these are lightships.
Although I can see how the terms would be confused.
I can see how I got confused.
Of course. That makes sense for smart people to think those things.
But anyway, these were built by the Blythe Craig Shipbuilding Company of Toledo, Ohio, and were towed to their spots by October of that same year with LV-55, just light vessel, 55 at Simmons Reef, 56 at White Shoal, and 57 at Gray's, which I had to look up all of those individually, so go me.
Good for you.
Thank you.
It's quality research.
Quality research. So LV-56, which is the one at White Shoals, was attached to a 5-ton sinker by 15 fathoms of 2-inch chain.
Heck yeah, we talked fathoms early on.
I saw the fathoms and I was like, oh, I got to bring this up for Vince. But anyway, life was not too agreeable on this vessel, allegedly, with the entire crew abandoning the ship against orders within 3 weeks.
That's fast.
Yeah. So then, of course, they were all fired and then a new crew was found. But it just shows that
it was pretty rough.
Yeah, being stationed down on a lightship was not the same as being stationed on a lighthouse.
It's a lighthouse that rocks all the time.
Yeah, and not as like protective, I would think.
Right.
Oh yeah, the rocking would. I mean, have you seen videos of people in the Coast Guard or like in the Navy, and it just shows them like walking sideways on like a deck?
Yes.
Because waves are so crazy.
Yeah. I've never been on a boat like that.
Yeah.
Been on a couple rocking boats, but nothing
Mm-hmm.
large where, oh, we're going to stay out in a storm. No,
Yeah.
never. Crazy.
I can't imagine it. So finally, in 1907, so this is a pretty late lighthouse. 1907, Congress put aside $250,000, which is $8.5 million in today's money,
It's crazy.
for a lighthouse and foghouse to be built on White Shoal, since the current vessel had to be removed during winter months due to ice, and so they wanted something that was going to be there year-round, no problem. So the foundation work was awarded to the lowest bidder for $93,785 plus 60 cents. I'm like, so specific.
Very firm price.
With Gillen Construction Company of Milwaukee. May 1908, construction started. The rock was leveled, and 400,000 square feet of timber cribbing was built onshore and then towed over to site. And then they sunk it onto the shoal that they had prepped with 4,000 tons of rock and 3,600 cubic yards of concrete. There's a really great old photo showing this crib before the lighthouse was built on top, because it was
That's incredible.
it was about like a 2-year endeavor. So
Wow.
there's a picture, and it's funny because in the photo it looks short, but then you see the man standing on the side. I'm pretty sure it was 20 feet above sea level, the total height of the crib.
Yeah, if he's looking, I mean, maybe not the average back then, but
Like
let's say
5.5.
6 foot. Yeah. 3 of him plus any of those gentlemen.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Pretty cool to see a good photo from early 1900s.
Of
right?
the construction, right. They usually have pictures, especially in like National Archives and in like USLHS. They have pictures of the half completed lighthouse, or like the lighthouse without the lantern room, but never of like just the foundation or something like that. So it's special to have a photo that actually clearly shows this crib being built. It's pretty cool.
It is.
On top of that, they had a reinforced concrete pier built 20 feet above the water line to support the lighthouse. And then by the time this was completed, winter was approaching, so they erected a skeleton tower with a temporary acetylene light on top. I keep touching this coffee, and it's like super condensate.
In the industry, we say it's sweating.
In the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that like a normal human word for this?
Probably. But also in the industry.
1909, the pier was completed, as was the exterior of the steel and concrete lighthouse, aside from the lantern room. And this is what I was talking about earlier. It was coated with gunite after completion, which is just sprayed concrete. So like the outside, like its coating was sprayed. I don't know. I feel like that would be not the cleanest application.
So 1909 is when we're talking?
Yeah.
When do they... I don't mean to jump ahead of you. Well, keep going.
Okay. The light was established in September of 1910, and LV 56 was reassigned to North Manitou Shoals, which got its own lighthouse in 1935. So super late. Only 3 years before Coast Guard took over.
So what was it? 1912 or 1911, somewhere in there, the Titanic sank.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah. Why does that feel like...
I want to say 1910 to 13, somewhere in there.
Yeah,
I should know these things.
I can look it up.
But the reason I bring it up is just, so I've considered doing an episode on lighthouse construction.
1912, good one.
Yeah, look at me. But one of the reasons I haven't yet is that there's so many different eras and technologies and so many different ways people have built lighthouses and parts of them. So it's something we're always going to be able to talk about. But I was thinking about, like, this day in history, what was going on with construction. And something, I took a class in college, mechanics of materials. And one of the things we talked about was the Titanic as an example of steel production. So there's a ductile to brittle transition temperature, DBTT. And I probably said this before on the podcast. Yeah. But at a certain degree, untreated steel, meaning steel that is not blended with other metals, which is alloying, steel will become brittle to where if you introduce a crack, like with a iceberg, the steel actually sheared like a piece of paper. It cracked as if it were porcelain, which is something that was a lesson learned of that time. But that's crazy to me that you had World War I go on shortly after that, early 1910s, I think. Yeah. And then, can continue down. I can ramble all through technology and history. But right now, like these folks are building this structure, not knowing so many things that we know today.
Yeah.
And in some way, kind of doing a better job.
Because it's all they got.
They're doing all they got, but all these men are all tradesmen. They're all specialists. They're, you know, I'm sure it wasn't an easy life, but it's so interesting to me that people were so skilled and they just really gambled on themselves.
Yeah.
They bet on themselves. Like, yeah, we can build it. Like the low bidder won the cribbing contract we're talking about.
Yeah. They're just like, we can make it happen.
Have they ever even done one before?
Giant. Yeah, true. Yeah, that would be a good, a little add-on, like what's going on in construction. Because it's like, is it revolutionary at that time?
Yeah.
Or was it like something that they're well-versed in?
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. The 1912 annual report of the Commissioner of Lighthouses said, quote, I'm doing a lot of reading in this episode because it's better sometimes straight from the horse's mouth.
Mm-hmm.
But quote, the deck of the pier supports an ornamental cylindrical... Wait a minute, I have a photo.
Wait a minute. Pop that photo.
Here we've got the completed lighthouse.
Oh, it's pretty.
Yes, and that black band around the bottom, it was like 38 feet up, I want to say. It says it later in my notes.
No way.
But it counted as its day mark is this black band.
That is cool. It's an iron, well, maybe not iron. It looks metal. Is that wood or metal?
It's concrete painted, I believe.
Even cooler.
I could be wrong.
This is a very cool lighthouse.
And I love the little ship that's next to the entry ladder. I think that's so cute.
Do you want to describe it for our listeners only?
The lighthouse?
Yeah, only listeners, not watchers.
Yeah, so it's white, has lots of windows, which they say today is really nice because there's no AC. And so air blows straight through the lighthouse. And there's always like at least a breeze, usually high winds. So it's actually pretty comfortable in there when it gets hot. All white. You can see the brick pattern. It has a aluminum lantern room, so it was like very bright and reflective, and I think it was the only aluminum one on the Great Lakes at the very least. So pretty neat. Very tall, I think 125 feet from the pier, so above water level it was like 145 or something.
It's beautiful,
or maybe more, I can't remember.
Cool day mark, kind of a low black band. The windows are all tall rectangular except for the upper level, which I don't remember what that's called.
And it's got some faux... So I didn't get to research too far into this, but this picture shows it really well. These massive front doors.
Mm-hmm.
You can see in comparison of the guy that's standing up front. They're metal doors, and it's because there was a boat inside the bottom of the lighthouse that they would take out to use. I think it was a motorboat, or at least it was in
Later
the future
on.
from this image. Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I get back to my quote. I was like, oh my gosh, wait, I have a photo. So the deck of the pier supports an ornamental cylindrical base for a conical shaped tower surmounted by a cylindrical service room, watch room, and first order helical bar lantern, whose focal plane is 105 feet above the deck of the pier. The tower is of structural steel backed with brick and faced with terracotta, with certain cast iron parts and trimmings, and with a gallery deck, watch room, and lantern made of aluminum. It goes on to describe the floors, which I'll pull up a picture for those who are watching of a breakdown of what the floors looked like. Quote, there are 4 keepers at the station. The tower is 9 stories in height, including the cellar in the interior of the pier, which contains the oil tanks. Above this is the first floor on level with deck of pier outside, containing rooms for the fog signal machinery, heating plant, stores, closets, and power boat. And the power boat is the thing we were talking about that needed the big doors. On the second floor are tool room, bathroom, and kitchen storeroom. The third floor contains kitchen, living room, and bedroom. The fourth floor, 2 bedrooms, toilet, etc. The fifth floor, a bedroom and general sitting room. The sixth and seventh, 1 large room each. The eighth contains the service room, which is immediately below the watch room of the lantern. The stairs are not centrally located, but are amply provided for near the outer walls of the tower. Supplies are landed directly on the pier from the tender, and the keeper's powerboat is stowed within the tower in a corridor on the first floor and the rowboat on the pier outside. That was all from the annual report of the Commissioner of Lighthouses.
Nice. Very official.
Yeah.
So that mechanical room, the 8th floor, that's the one that I was pointing out has porthole windows in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, very cool.
Love that.
And then
porthole window.
That's the cylindrical room, I would say, above the conical area. But I really hope this is still there.
What?
this lighthouse.
It is. And you can stay there.
Oh, let's go.
It's pretty cool. They have a lot of awesome current history going on right now.
Come on, Michigan. Let's go.
Let's go. So they had a second order flashing lens on a mercury float, which is another history buoy I'm going to do. I found some data on mercury floats, like
nice.
how they came to be and like their downfall and all that.
We talked a little bit about them.
We did.
At some point.
Yeah.
And
touched on them.
Who was it that told us we were wrong?
That was Fred Stonehouse.
Fred?
Yes.
So maybe, I don't know, stepping on your material, but Fred mentioned a lot of the Great Lakes lighthouses are not mercury floats.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember why.
The main reason is that, so this is a good example actually. The main reason is that Great Lakes did not often have anything more than a fourth order lens.
Okay.
So they weren't that heavy. So you didn't need something like a mercury float in order to rotate the lens. You could just use clockwork and it wouldn't put a bunch of stress on anything.
It wasn't heavy enough.
But this second order lens is the largest that's ever been on the Great Lakes.
Oh,
and so
wow.
they needed something like a mercury float to reduce the pressure.
Yeah, so it could still reduce the friction, so it could still rotate.
Yeah, right.
Cool. I'm excited to learn more.
Yeah. So this lens was lit by mineral oil that was pumped from the bottom of the station, which is like 125 feet. So
It's a lot of head.
It's a lot, yeah. And we talk a lot about how keepers had to lug buckets or, containers of oil up all the stairs. So it's nice that this lighthouse was built in a time where you could just install a pump.
I'm curious how that, it's 19 something, so
Yeah.
they were around.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious what style of pump and all that. I'm studying for my professional engineering license exam, and one of the sections I read last night was the various types of pumps, at least for HVAC
So it's
use.
fresh on your mind.
Yes.
So the lens was rotated by clockwork with hanging weights with run rotation every 32 seconds. I have a picture here. I think the photo was taken in the 90s, but this was the second order lens that we had. It was bivalve or clamshell type.
Pretty.
The largest that we ever had in the Great Lakes.
Lots of copper.
There's this neat photo of when it was being assembled or maybe taken apart, of just the bullseye, which I thought was awesome because we've never seen one half taken apart.
Super cool. No, I have not. I wonder if they have bolts that go in those copper sections or how that works.
I don't know, because they've got to be easily replaceable when something's damaged or scratched. Or something.
I see in that bullseye image on the right, it looks
Little
like
dots.
holes.
Yeah.
Maybe they're tapped for screws.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
So yeah, currently it's at a shipwreck museum at Whitefish Point Light Station.
In Michigan somewhere? I'm thinking of Montana. Obviously, that's not. I don't think there's any lighthouses in Montana, but.
Yeah, Paradise, Michigan is where it's located.
Cool.
It's a skeleton light. I never looked up. It's pretty. Oh my gosh. Lots of buildings. Another one to add to the list. So the total cost of this lighthouse being built ended up being $224,500.
They saw, would they go $500 under budget?
$25,000 underneath.
Oh, nice. I would have said 500 and kept the cash.
Oh, that's unethical.
Not really.
It's unethical, sweetheart.
For everyone out there that knows me, that's not actually true.
So let's see. Another fun point is that this is the tallest lighthouse on the Great Lakes today. So it's pretty interesting.
Cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It doesn't look that tall from, we've talked about this, lighthouses that are just out in the middle, like Cordovan Lighthouse.
Yeah, with nothing next to it.
Nothing to gauge the size of it. It doesn't look like it's that tall, but still pretty tall for a Great Lakes. To have a second order and be over 100 feet tall is like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
So in 1930, there's not a lot that happened to this lighthouse. So it's mostly like current things that are really exciting. But in 1930, the illuminant was changed to electricity. And originally it was a white tower, as you could see in the older photos that we showed. And it had a narrow black band at 38 feet. So I was right.
That's a pretty early transition. Go ahead.
In 1927, it was changed to an all-black lighthouse.
All black.
Which
painted black.
Was not common at all. But when you think about it, it's against sky and water. So black would stand out, especially if the sun's coming down and it's like the light's reflecting. Like, would you see white as well as you would see black? I don't think so.
Well, and at nighttime, it's going to be black anyways. Right.
True.
I mean, the light's all you're going to see.
The day mark is not really relevant at night.
Black is interesting.
Yeah. And then, of course, it's Michigan. So the ice gets crazy in the winter, so it's important to distinguish it from that.
That makes sense.
But they repainted it back to white 10 years after that in 1937.
Wonder why. The 10 years, there's got to be lessons learned.
Yeah.
Maybe there was a wreck, or maybe it was expensive, or got dirty.
I think
I don't know.
black must have been a lot more expensive than white.
Black cars are hard to keep clean, so.
Oh. 1954, White Shoals got the red spiral markings that we see today. Pause for effect.
Barbershop, candy cane, what are we talking?
Barbershop and candy cane refer to the same. So this is what we originally had. Then there was black, and then back to this original, and now we have this barbershop, which is the only
That's cool.
barbershop striped lighthouse in the U.S. and only candy striped light on the Great Lakes.
Really?
Yeah.
It's the only one.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if it's always been the only one.
Well,
is that ice, by the way?
Yes. The amount of ice is insane. I have a picture later that kind of shows like a glacier cliff next to one of them, or next to the lighthouse. It's kind of crazy.
That makes me nervous.
By the way, I meant red and white barber striped. It's the only one in the U.S. because we have like Cape Hatteras and St. Augustine, which are barber striped, but they're black and white.
Yeah.
So just to specify.
And this is red in a black and white photo.
Yes.
Very cool.
You see if I have a photo of it in color. Oh yeah.
Awesome.
So
and embedded in ice.
See all the ice is so crazy.
Well, and that makes sense too, because it's on a 3-foot deep water area,
Mm-hmm.
the shoal. And so the water's going to be able to freeze there before in deeper water.
And climb up over time.
That looks cold. Very Christmassy.
Yeah, it is cute.
Be a nice Christmas card.
1976, the station was automated and de-staffed, as were the lights on Gray's Reef and Lansing Shoals. So
Late. Electrified early, automated late.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
In May 2014, so we're skipping ahead, White Shoals Lighthouse was deemed excess by the Coast Guard and made available under the guidelines of the National Historic Lighthouse Preservation Act, but nobody claimed it because it would have been so expensive to fix, especially after being abandoned for decades.
Oh, 76 to
14.
Yep. That's a lifetime.
It's a long time.
For me.
It was put up for bid with a starting amount of $15,000, and at the end, the high bid was $110,009 to what would become the White Shoal Light Historical Preservation Society, with the goal to fix it up to 1950s condition and make it available to the public for people to stay at.
I like that.
Yeah. I know. I like it when they make it vintage.
If I had the money, I would buy a $110,000 lighthouse.
Yeah.
But I would given what we know now, I would also give it to some lighthouse friends group, like
True.
someone to help take care of it and keep it around for more than just me.
You got to be prepared because it's going to be your whole life. Like the amount of planning that has to go into like funding alone is insane, but also like you got to pay to have a boat bring supplies. To, like if you don't even think about all those little details, this is so far offshore, and you got to have even the transportation of materials in order to do any sort of renovation would be insane.
Well, even if you were super wealthy, multiple millions, 10s, 20s, 30s millions, and this is a toy of yours, like you just think it's cool. There's no standard services like I need a house cleaner, so you hire one. I need someone to watch the kids, so you hire somebody.
Yeah.
I need someone to paint my lighthouse. I need someone to check in on the foundation for the crib. Like
you gotta have people that are really knowledgeable.
Lighthouse knowledgeable
About each side or subject of
very
the lighthouse.
Cool.
So.
Very passionate based project, I'm sure.
Exactly. So if you go to their website, which will be linked in my show notes, they have a section that's called What You Need to Know If You Are Considering an Overnight Stay at White Shoal Light. And there's 19 points. A lot of them are about physical requirements that you have to climb a bunch of stairs and back and forth from there's 2 bathroom floors and you don't stay on those floors. So you have to climb back and forth. There's 143 steps from the deck to the lantern room. So it's just a lot of climbing. Cell service is meh. And you need to bring food to cook during your stay yourself. And water from the tap is straight from the lake. So you have to bring bottled water for drinking. Yep. So it's kind of you have
you're
to.
A little camping
you're
out.
Camping, yes.
It's super cool, though.
And once you're on the station, you are not removed until it is safe to do so, even if that means you stay an extra night or 2, which
Oh,
you
yeah.
don't get charged for. But if you're like planning on flying home the next day and you have to stay,
Do you know, do they have heating and like hot water, cold air, like
I
AC?
want to say yes to hot water, but no to AC and no to heat.
I wonder what it'd be like on the lake. I mean, obviously it's weather dependent, but
Freezing.
like in the middle of summer, right now it's the end of July, early
Yeah.
August. So like, what is it? What's the temperature of the lighthouse? I wonder.
I don't know. But they said it's really high humidity, which is what like kind of leads to the discomfort inside the lighthouse. But then they also talked about all of the windows that are across from each other, so you get like a nice cross breeze going if you have all the windows open,
That's
which
awesome.
they do open. So I took this quote straight from their website. Quote, "You are signing up to stay at a 110-year-old historic structure that is currently in the process of being restored. You'll be provided clean private rooms and modern bathrooms during your stay. There are, however, many areas of the lighthouse that are still in their 1976 abandoned state, complete with flaking paint, spiders, and everything else you would expect to find in an old house. If you are envisioning modern tiled bathrooms and ornate guest quarters, this experience is not for you. All areas of the lighthouse are open for you to explore with the exception of our basement dungeon deck." I'm like, spooky.
What?
Also, when they say spiders, I looked up what kind of spiders they're talking about because like, I think of like little spiders. They're talking about orb weavers. Have you seen what those look like?
No. And how do they get to the lighthouse?
I don't know.
Is no one else asking that question?
And they're talking about lots of them too. They're not like, oh, you may see one or two. It's like clusters of orb weavers.
I don't know what that is.
Okay, let me show you. Orb weaver.
It's a cool name, though.
I think they're harmless. I'm pretty sure they're harmless. And you may recognize them because it sticks with you. These sons of it.
Wow. They weave an orb.
Long, knobby legs, bright colors, large. Things you don't want to ever touch you a day in your life.
The venom amount comparable to the sting of a bee.
Yeah, so unless you're allergic, it's not a problem.
Just be,
Annoying. I think they're pretty tame, so unlikely to bite you.
you just bring a house cat with you.
Oh my gosh, no.
Why?
You don't want to subject them to venom?
Oh, I forgot about that part.
We're the only ones that are important.
I was thinking of the cats eating them
Yeah, exactly.
and not getting the venom, which doesn't make sense.
They pick it out. So another quote from their list says, "There is a 90-minute boat ride that departs Mackinac City aboard our restored 30-foot Coast Guard utility boat," which is awesome. "The boat has a small forward cabin for gear, but the passenger area is wide open to the elements. Depending on wind and wave conditions, you should plan on getting wet as well as your gear to and from the lighthouse."
Heck yeah.
So it's not glamorous, that's for sure.
It's
Also,
an
the
adventure.
last point is the best, number 19. "There's been paranormal activity reported by guests and staff at the light station."
An adventure.
Let's go.
I want to
Let's
go. I want to be on a boat.
And the worst part is you can't even get away. So if you're freaked out by the spiders, you're freaked out by the ghosts.
How do the spiders get? How far is this off the coast? Are the spiders
It's
on the waterfront, like walking along the water? Am I crazy for asking these questions?
Can spiders swim?
Why would they swim out to a lighthouse?
Well, if they get stuck in the water, they climb onto whatever they find.
So there's like one clan of spiders that's like been there for 1,000 years.
Yeah. It's like the snakes we talked about, Snake Island Light, where they
Snake Island.
become their own type of snake because they've
Brazil.
been separated for so long.
Yep.
That would be crazy. Special orb weavers.
That's still one of our biggest YouTube hits.
Really?
Snake Island, yeah.
It didn't get a lot of attention on our actual listener base. Anyway, for 2 people to stay here, it is $3,000 for a 3-night adventure package. So definitely expensive. And it has a 5-person maximum. But if you rent it out for 5 people, you get $1,500 off. So you get like a deal, a little discount.
$1,500. So is it $3,000 for the whole thing for a couple?
Yeah. Because like
can another couple stay there?
there's 3 floors. There's one floor that can have 2 people, one floor that has 1 person, and another floor that has 2 people.
Okay.
So you basically book a floor.
Huh.
And then
But-
in between each of those is
So
a bathroom.
if you book the whole place, they give you a break.
Yeah, they give you a discount for booking it all.
Oh, well, I don't think I can afford that right now. Maybe I could stay outside. Maybe I could set up a tent.
Oh, it'd be so cold. It doesn't matter what time of year it is, the wind and everything. Be like, good night.
That's pretty neat.
So they had a question that I put on here as well. There was like frequently asked questions. said, can we show up at the light station unannounced? And it's just the description of what you have to do is just hilarious to me. Yes, you are welcome to come out to the light station at any time, day or night, to take pictures. That does not necessarily mean you will be granted access to the structure. If we happen to be open for tours, which is so funny, like in the middle of nowhere, like actually middle of nowhere in the water, if we're open for tours, like if you just show up in the middle of the water and we're open, I just think it's funny.
There's just someone sitting there at a table.
Yeah. Like, we're open. It's like, how often do people come by here? Anyway, if we happen to be open for tours, upon your arrival, we will have a safe place for you to tie up. Then we will lower you down a bucket. The bucket will contain the liability waiver as well as instructions on how to pay the $30 per person fee. Obviously, it will be easier to have this all prearranged. So I think you can call and plan to show up at the lighthouse.
How far is this offshore?
I tried to look it up, but it's a 90-minute boat ride, so it's obviously not close.
But is that the closest? Mackinac City is the closest port?
No, I don't think so. Because that's 20 miles. Do you think 20 miles is closest?
There's no way.
There's got to be some
I mean, they're big lakes, I guess.
It's hard to look up distance from a shoreline. I've tried it several times with lighthouses, and it just gets difficult.
I've always had to scale it on Google Maps.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's crazy.
Once the waiver is signed and restoration fee has been paid, you and your guests will be invited onto the structure for a 90-minute guided tour. So I just thought it was funny. We'll lower you down a bucket. Like, cute. So the lighthouse this year is closed for renovations. They've been doing it since 2018, which I'm going to show you their plan, their renovation plan.
Nice.
But I don't think it's been updated since the whole COVID thing happened. So I bet it's pushed back a few years, especially because right now you can tell that the exterior paint hasn't been fixed yet. And that was supposed to happen in the first phase of their restoration. So I'll pull that up right now. But they're closed this year. Last year they were open for people to stay. And next year they're planning to be open again, 2025.
Nice.
Phase 1 was supposed to be 18 to 21. And it was basically like getting rid of the lead paint and asbestos. Full engineering evaluation to figure out what had to be done. There's like all kinds of heavy reworking, stabilizing the structure. So like really big stuff. They were going to launch the tugboat Titan to transport machinery, supplies, and personnel from the lighthouse. That's pretty cool. All that kind of stuff. Install new windows, interior paint prep, and then new exterior paint was supposed to happen in that first phase.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't really find what phase they're in right now. I want to say maybe they're still in the first phase. I don't know. But second phase was supposed to be 22 through 24. That was like continued restoration through the inside, damaged glass panes in the lantern room, decorative railings, etc. Rebuild massive boathouse doors, which I would love to see. And then the last phase was 2020 for 2025, and was a lot of outfitting the inside with the 1950s memorabilia. They were going to have an on-site gift shop, a maritime museum, and then they would have full staffing and day tours and overnight bookings and all that. So it'll come back.
Yeah.
So much work.
I hope so.
So crazy.
This is a little silly to say. If you've listened to a lot of our episodes, you know this, or if you're in the lighthouses, you know this, but it's a huge effort within the entire community of lighthouse folks to connect with resources, mainly funding.
Yeah.
I don't know their business, obviously. I don't know what's going on here, like how that funding situation is. But I early on, I discovered when we were getting into this, a need, one of the many lighthouses that was asking for fundraising for a certain program.
Yeah.
And I made a donation. I just thought it was super cool, this and that. And I'm sure it did nothing. Like it's
what we
this
can
is
donate.
Easy for me to say it. Right? It's always easy to say this, but like what I can donate at this time is just not significant. But if we did have people being involved, it's like the conversation we had recently with Jeremy de Estremont about how to get people, younger folks like ourselves, into lighthouse culture, invested. How do we help out? How do we get tied in? And obviously there's a lot of people doing a lot of work to do that, but yeah, I'm sure there's people out there that are looking to donate to some cause.
Yeah.
So are we going to talk about, is there an avenue easily available to donate?
Their website, which I have in the show notes, You
Great.
can donate, and also you can volunteer, which they're not doing right now because they're closed for like actual restoration. That's why I'm assuming that they're still in phase 1. Is like they can't have anybody come in, probably because they're working with like the lead paint and the asbestos and stuff.
Professionals and then volunteers
Yes.
in between, probably.
Yeah, right.
Cool.
But yeah, so nowadays it has a white flash every 5 seconds, and you can also purchase a license plate. I think it's just in Michigan where it has the lighthouse on it, and it goes towards like the funds. The extra funds goes towards
That's cool.
lighthouse preservation.
Very cool.
Their Facebook is a great way to keep up to date with everything to do with the lighthouse. They post, I saw every couple of days, maybe it's more than that sometimes, but they really keep up to date on what's going on at the lighthouse. So that's also in our show notes.
What is the group called that manages the lighthouse?
White Shoal Light Historical Preservation Society.
Thank you. I know you said that, but
No, you're good. White Shoal is also, this is interesting, a part of Glen, Great Lakes Evaporation Network, the same group that tracks data at Standard Rock with the Superior Watershed Project. So it's one of several lighthouses that collect environmental data out there.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Unique point. Yeah.
More point, last year they sent out 4 bottles with notes in them and free nights, like certificates of the lighthouse, into the lake from the lighthouse. They just threw them out and they showed up on shore, and people like picked them up and got free nights at the lighthouse. And you know what they sent? You know what bottles they sent them out in?
Coke.
Boom Boo.
No way.
They sent it out in Boom Boo bottles.
Yeah, that's a for those of you who don't know, it's a rum that we quite enjoy. It's very sweet.
Very good.
But yeah, it's got a nice flavor to it. It looks like a pirate bottle. It's got a cork top.
Yes, it has like the skull, not skull and crossbones, but like the crossbones on it, which is why I'm sure they selected them, is because it's a really cool bottle.
That's so funny.
But I just saw something about it and I was like, oh, that's neat. I wasn't going to make a note about it. And then I saw an article that had a picture of what the bottles looked like. And I was like, that's Boom Boo.
There you go. Shout out to Boom Boo.
And I think they may be doing it again this year as well. They did that last year. And only one bottle never made it back to shore.
It's still floating somewhere.
Yeah, just out there.
Stuck in the permafrost.
Yeah, right. But yeah, that's the story of White Shoal Lighthouse.
Awesome. Really cool lighthouse.
Yeah, I love the stripies. We love red. Maybe they're using, what is it called?
Tnemec.
Tnemec.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
I don't believe it's a cheap product.
Yeah, right. Nothing but the best for our lighthouses.
Yeah.
If we can afford it.
When we can afford it. Yeah. Very neat.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks to all of our listeners for showing up. We keep going strong, and we're excited that you're listening. And thank you to all of our new listeners for popping in, just giving us a shot.
Appreciate you.
Yeah. You can follow us on YouTube and Instagram at The Lighthouse Lowdown. You can check out our website, thelghthouselowdown.com, where you can listen to our episodes and also check out our YouTube videos. And you can also leave us a review if you enjoyed this episode. Please do. We love to see them. And we'll catch you next time on Lighthouse Lowdown.